This is
TRE.
The TRE Book Show is sponsored by Audible. Click on the Audible banner on the talkradioeurope.com homepage to download your free audiobook today. Terms and conditions apply.
The Book Programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now from the UK is Marjory McGinn. She's a Scottish-born author and journalist brought up in Australia. She worked in Scotland for 10 years as a freelance feature writer, and her journalism has appeared in newspapers in Britain and Australia. A youthful work travel year in Athens inspired a lifelong fascination for Greece. And in 2010, she set off on an adventure with her husband and their dog to the southern Peloponnese that lasted for 4 years and was the basis for her travel memoirs, Things Can Only Get Better, Homer's Where the Heart Is, and A Scorpion in the Lemon Tree. She's with us on the book show to talk about her latest novel. It's called How Greek Is Your Love, and it's a sequel to A Saint for the Summer. Welcome to the book show, Marjory.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you with us, and I love the titles of your books. I think they're fabulous. They make me sing.
Well, the memoirs, there was a touch of madness in the memoirs because of the times that we had in Greece. So I felt that the titles needed to reflect that.
Yes, definitely. So you went for an adventure and stayed for 4 years. That sounds like a great adventure to me.
Yes, it was. We went in 2010, basically because we wanted to have an adventure in Greece, but there was a recession at the time in Britain, a terrible winter. We were living in Scotland, and a downturn in the newspaper industry. So we thought, let's just pack up and go. But what we wanted was a very Greek experience. So we ended up in a hillside village. We took our dog Wallace, who's a Jack Russell, and I don't know if you know them, but they're very fizzy and mad. So that kind of guaranteed we'd have a bit of a giggle anyway. So we stayed in that village for a year, and then we moved to a village nearby, and that really inspired the books.
And whereabouts in Greece were you?
Well, we were in the southern Peloponnese, which not a lot of people are really familiar with, but it's the jaggy bit at the bottom, the three peninsulas, the jaggy bit, and we were in the middle one, which is called the Mani. So it was quite wild. We picked it because it was quite wild and off the beaten track, because we wanted a very different kind of experience, when we didn't, much as we love British expats, we didn't particularly want to have that experience. We wanted to meet Greeks, and I had some Greek, enough to get by from lots of previous trips to Greece, so we set about just making a lot of Greek friends and doing Greek things, really, olive harvests and going to all sorts of festivals and things like that. So it was quite, it was an authentic kind of experience.
Yeah.
With a lot of madness in it too. And I have to say, a lot of that inspired by Wallace, the dog, because people had never seen a Jack Russell before in this particular village, which is quite a traditional village. And one village woman thought, the first day she saw us, that we were taking a sheep out for a walk, a small goat, because he has, he had a black face and white body. So that was a conversation opener, but people were bemused by Wallace's behaviour. And in a funny way, he led us into many friendships with Greek people, I think.
And what was it like being in Greece in such a small village that's, as you say, is very traditional? Because I think a lot of people sort of fantasize about doing that, moving to Greece or Spain or Italy and living in a very authentic village. But often it's not as idyllic as people imagine. How did you find it?
Well, because I had been to Greece quite a lot more than my husband Jim, but I was quite prepared to go beyond my comfort zone. I knew that I would have to do that if it was going to be an interesting experience. So I probably pushed the boat out a bit further than some people might have. And we didn't pick, the idyllic village by the sea with bougainvillea on the houses and all that. I mean, that's beautiful, but we didn't pick that sort of surroundings. This was a working village where people had for centuries been growing olives, herding goats and sheep and all that sort of thing. So it had some quite rough edges. It wasn't the archetypical, I suppose in many ways, a little bit like Corfu was when the Darrells first went there, if you've seen that, the program on TV. It was a little bit rough around the edges. The houses we rented were, a bit rough around the edges sometimes. And because the people were starting to feel the effects of the crisis, which they were, things were probably a bit more tense than they would have otherwise been. So we had the whole thing, the whole experience of kind of living through all that with them. And though, I mean, let's be fair, we weren't affected by the crisis the way they were, because we were freelancing, writing articles for various publications, so we didn't rely on, Greek incomes the way they did. So we were kind of outsiders still looking in. You can never really get into the heart of a village unless you've been there a long, long time and you speak fluent Greek. So in a sense, we were always outsiders, but we did see a lot of what was going on at the time. I mean, and it was fascinating. It was.
And did the locals embrace you?
Yes, they did. They did, because we were up for it. We did go beyond our comfort zone. We did a lot of things that were sometimes uncomfortable, and we made, yes, they did, particularly and oddly, one of the women that I in particular became most friendly with was a woman called Eleni, who's in the books, but I changed her name, but Eleni is her real name. And she was just a goat herder from a mountain village, and she became, in an odd kind of way, a muse, like a literary muse. I think once I met her, and she had us coming to her farm for coffee quite a lot, which was quite a challenging space, as Greek farms always are. She had us there for coffee quite a lot, and I got to know her quite well. And she quite inspired me, to be honest, to write the first book. I thought, well, this is a gift. I've met this woman. She's like nobody I'm ever going to meet in my life again. And I'm going to work her into a book.
Fabulous.
So I did. So yes, they did embrace us. We made a lot of friends. And although we're obviously not there anymore, we had to come back. I still keep in touch with quite a lot of them. I write to them.
Yeah. In Greek?
I can write in Greek. It takes me an awful long time, yes.
Wow, that's impressive, though.
Well, it's tough. I write short little notes to them in Greek. It takes me quite a while, because none of them, that's the thing, none of these Greeks, the Greek villagers, the farmers, none of them spoke English. So that's a bonus. My advice to anybody who wants to go to Greece to have an adventure is pick a village where nobody speaks English.
A real challenge.
Maybe one, just to help you out the whole sometimes. And then you really, things will take off.
So with your books, A Saint for the Summer and now the sequel, How Greek Is Your Love, what was the difference for you writing fiction compared to non-fiction?
Well, I had always wanted to write fiction, and I have got a novel in one of my bottom drawers that I wrote years ago, which I didn't think was good enough. So fiction was always in my mind, but the three memoirs were a reflection of our time in Greece, what the things that we went through, the adventures and all of that. But then, of course, we came back. We had to come back to Britain for personal reasons, all kinds of reasons. And we're now back here for good, as far as, for good ever means. But So I couldn't give up writing. I wanted to write more, so I decided I had so many experiences in Greece while we'd been there that I could turn that into fiction. I had lots of ideas for fiction, so I just started writing. I wrote the first one. I thought, that'll be it, and then I wrote the second one. The second one is really a sequel to the first one, but they can be read as standalone, so I have written them that way in case people just want to read one. So they're both set, in the same area, in the Mani, and a lot of the characters are very similar to some of the real characters we met. So in a sense, it was like a natural progression, if you like, from the memoirs.
And the book feature expat journalist Bronte McKnight. Any reflection on you?
Well, yes, there is a lot. There is a lot of me in Bronte. She's Scottish. She was a journalist in Scotland. There is a lot of me in her, yes. But, they say that you should write what you know.
Yep.
And because I had spent many years as a journalist, I thought, well, she'll have to be a journalist. That's all there is to it. So just briefly, that she goes to Greece to help her expat father, Angus, who's a bit maverick, with a health problem. But it turns out that it's a family mystery that he wants Bronte to help him solve that goes back to the Second World War. Probably don't have time to hear what that's all about. Suffice to say that it's to do with a grandfather who was there during the war who went missing. And they do solve the mystery, and then she falls in love with a gorgeous Greek doctor and stays on in Greece. And that's where the second novel really picks up, what's happened to her now in Greece. She's in love with this guy. Is Greece everything she thought it was going to be? And not always necessarily. So that's how the two books at least are linked.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like a great story. It's called How Greek Is Your Love, and it's by Marjory McGinn, who we've been chatting to. Listeners can get a copy of the book on our website, tre.radio, in the bookshop section there. Marjory, thank you so much for joining us. It's been lovely to talk Greece with you.
Thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me.
The Book Programme, presented by Hannah Murray. TRE, your voice in Spain.
The TRE Book Show is sponsored by Audible. Click on the Audible banner on the talkradioeurope.com homepage to download your